vast majority of people in property development fail to understand that they are in the construction industry. As soon as you start doing a project to make money, you've now entered the construction industry. 760 luxury flats, GDV, £750 million, between 1,500 and 1,800 men there every day. I have responsibility if anything goes wrong. And someone doing a one-bedroom flat refurb is no different to me. Every single bit of law and legislation that applies to me applies to them. Skilled labour is not cheap, and cheap labour is not skilled. If you want to have a successful project, find out what you need to pay and pay it. Even in the worst economic times, there's always a project somewhere that's viable.
Assuming you're a property developer, because why else would you be tuning into this podcast, and you're looking to become a better developer, then you won't want to miss our show this year. At our shows, you'll have the chance to listen to live expert speakers, network with like-minded professionals, and meet new service providers who can help you grow and perfect your property business. With Milton Keynes behind us, we're on to our next location in Bristol on the 30th of April, followed by Birmingham on the 16th of July, Manchester 10th of September, and finally, Leeds on the 8th of October. The show is created by developers, for developers, and the most amazing thing, tickets are completely free. Visit our website, propertydevelopershow.co.uk, to book your ticket today. Welcome to another episode of the Property Developer Show, the podcast. Today, I'm joined by Dave Forde, who is a construction consultant. He's worked on projects such as HS2, Crossrail, and many more. What Dave doesn't know about construction, I don't think is worth knowing. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So we'll kind of jump in your, I suppose, life cycle in construction. I think you've got quite a unique story that started at 13 years old working for Dad, or involved with what was going on there. And obviously you've gone on to do your own sort of property projects, but more so this, in today's world, more the construction consultation side of things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, my old man was a builder, so I was going to work with him when I was, 13, school holidays and weekends and that. And so we had an M&A firm, mechanical and electrical. We had a building division with it, but him and his mates used to buy up. I come from North London, Islington. So there's a lot of the old Victorian and Georgian houses, 5 stories high. So they buy them up and split them into flats. And so I just learnt it from there. And as I progressed, I'd done my apprenticeship, become an electrician, worked in the general industry, but I always knew that there was another way to make money. That was property development. Now, I've got to say, back in the day when I started, it was a lot different to what it is now. It was a lot easier, there weren't so many laws and etc. around it, or maybe there were, maybe we didn't know, or perhaps we just didn't care. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So as I've moved on, I was what I would describe as a money monster, right? I was just obsessed with money, and I didn't really care how hard I had to work or what the project was. So I was always looking to progress and push myself and get more qualifications. So I've done quite well in the industry, and I've done a lot of work in the Middle East, and then I was back here, and I would always have something on the go. I'd be helping a mate with a refurb, or a few of us would chip in. We'd buy a flat and flip it. I remember back in 1987, we made 15 grand on this flat. I'm telling you, that was a lot of money. Split 4 ways, I don't need 4 grand, good dough. And then about, I can't remember now, 15, nearly 20 years ago, I started getting into management. And I started getting on big projects, big infrastructure projects, the railway, oil and gas. I worked, the Shard. I worked 7 years on Crossrail, a couple of years on HS2. And by that time, I'd been introduced to big developers. I'd done a lot of luxury developments in prime central London locations, Mayfair, Belgravia, etc., etc. So now I haven't done a project for a while, the reason for that, I'm looking to leave the UK and my money's going to be invested abroad. But I work as a consultant. I've got my own consultancy, and I'll either work with developers who are either brand new to it, let's say, getting their first development going, or maybe they've done a couple, but they're just guessing at it. They're having a go, they're trying to do it professionally. Or I work with developers who are trying to level up, go up a gear, maybe going from 2 or 3 new builds to they want to do 50 or something like that, or they're doing projects at a value of $1 million, less than $1 million, and now they want to move up to 5 million plus. And I also work with construction companies who are trying to break into the world of tier 1 contracting. Now that is a completely different thing, absolutely ruthless game. I don't know why anyone would ever want to break into it, but just the way the cards have been dealt me, I've been in it most of my life. I know how it works. So, yeah, that's about it.
What kind of goes into going up a gear? What's the sort of things that you're sitting down and looking at to say, right, you need to pull this lever, you need to do that? What does that kind of look like?
All right, so there's a couple of key areas. Let's try and think. Health and safety is a big one. It's probably the biggest. What people don't really, I'm constantly amazed that people will spend endless hours, in the hundreds, on Rightmove and auction property catalogues and all that, trying to find the right deal. They'll spend many, many, many hours looking at finance, bridging finance. This is 0.25% cheaper, but that one has an exit fee, blah, blah, blah. They've got endless time to do that. They've got endless time to go to property networking meetings and try to meet accountants and learn tax strategies. And you could lose it all on day one if there's an accident on your job. What I find the vast majority of people in property development fail to understand that they are in the construction industry. Now, I've got a senior management role on a prestige project in Canary Wharf, London. It's 760 luxury flats, GDV, £750 million. We have between 1,500 and 1,800 men there every day. And I have responsibility if anything goes wrong, And someone doing a 1-bedroom flat refurb is no different to me at all. Every single bit of law and legislation that applies to me applies to them. The only difference, there's a couple of differences. I know it and they don't. And I know that's what to do and they don't. So this has been my first conversation with someone. Then we have to look at construction contracts and doing due diligence on builders and using things like PQQs, pre-qualification questionnaires. Then we have to set the projects up properly. We have to have a proper program that's realistic, that works. And then when we start doing a project, we have to have some systems of control. We have to have some governance procedures, and we have to have stakeholder management, which is very important, and that's what I talk about when I say levelling up. Because what you got to understand, there's a lot of money to be made in this. Everyone knows that, right? But equally, there's just as much, if not more, to be lost. And people lose money all the time. Me, myself, I've lost loads of money doing property. And I have seen people lose fortunes. I have seen people lose everything. I have seen people remortgage their house and lose it when the project's gone wrong. And if you're just coming into this, I don't want to make it sound confrontational, because one thing I don't like what I hear in these property circles is like an us and them. The builder are the enemy. The builders had to rip me off. That's completely wrong. I don't know whoever come up with that. But what you got to understand is these geezers do it for a living, right? And they've done it their whole life, and they've probably taught by their dad, like me, and they've been around the block and they know how to play the game. And you don't even know what the rules are. And they're playing for keeps. And a lot of these contractors who drop down into, I don't want to upset anyone, but it's called house bashing and flat bashing. It's regarded as the lowest end of the construction industry. A lot of these blokes, what's happened, they've had a go in the tier 2, tier 3 world of the big projects, they've been stung by the ruthless tier 1 contractors. They're thinking they've lost 50, 60, 200 grand. They're thinking, I ain't having that again. Now they've dropped down, but now they're sharp. It's happened once, ain't going to happen again. They're playing for keeps. They're playing hardball. They know what they're doing, you know. And like I say, it's not a confrontation thing. I'm not there as the minder or the enforcer or whatever. I'm just there to protect the client's interest, you know. And I'm there to make sure that they're going to deliver the contracts to my client's wishes, and that's it. You know, there's not going to be any fighting or arguing or shouting. That they're going to do what they're told, or they ain't going to be there. That's all that there is to it.
Yeah. And that's the kind of process or understanding the game in a way to take you to that next level.
Yeah.
And that's what you come in to, I suppose, inform people that this is the process. These are the potential pitfalls. And if you don't know, if you're not alert to, or you don't know what you don't know, this can happen.
Yeah.
So how do you mitigate around those situations?
Well, so can I just add, that's a two-way thing as well, because quite often I get phone calls and there'll be something like this. Typically, I realise that, Dave, yeah, I heard about you. I've been, you know, referred to you. Look, I've got this problem here. I've got this project. It's all going wrong. I've got this builder. He's ripping me off. Can you come sort it out? So I go and have a look. I talk to the builder. There's nothing wrong with him at all, you know. We talk about the money. He's not ripping them off at all. What it is, they've got it completely wrong. You know, either the information they've given him is not complete. He's only priced it on that, or just, you know, he is not at fault, and I end up taking his side against the person who's paying me. Now they're not happy at all, and so I'm just there, right? You know, I'm a chartered construction manager, and I'm signed up to a code of professional conduct and ethics, and one of those things is to display the highest standards at all times in everything I do, but also to encourage others to do it. So when I'm on a job and I see a builder, maybe he ain't that good, maybe it's too much for him, right? And the client wants me to lay down the law, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to help him, you know, and I'm going to explain to the client that we either all win together or we just spend every day here fighting and no work gets done and money gets lost. So anyway, so going back to your question, how do we mitigate against it? All right, so first of all, the health and safety. You need to know what your legal obligations are under the law, right? These are not optional. It's different if you buy your family house and you do a load of work to it. You can knock down walls, you build an extension yourself if you're capable, etc. The law says, crack on, that's your house. As soon as you start doing a project to make money, you now become a commercial client. You've now entered the construction industry. Whole new ball game, you know what I mean? So I educate my clients about that. And sometimes I'll advise them where to go to get training and information about their responsibilities. Sometimes I'll explain it and they'll say, look, I don't want that. Will you work for us doing this? Yeah, that's fine. Or I'll tell them who they need to go and perhaps they think I'm too expensive, you know. So, all right, fine, go and find someone else, but make sure they know this. This is what they got to give you, this. And that is non-negotiable. It's absolutely non-negotiable. You can end up in prison. But it's not about someone having an accident and you going to prison and you losing all your money. It's about living with the guilt of you, by your negligence, by your lack of willingness to educate yourself. Someone got hurt, someone got crippled, someone lost an eye, someone had an arm ripped off, someone got killed. You just don't want that guilt. You don't need it, you know. So that's the first thing. Then obviously it's setting up the projects, it's doing the due diligence on the builders, you know, it's knowing what to ask them. Then when you found the right one, it's setting the projects up in a logical, sequential way that makes sense, not just lets all steam in. I mean, you must have seen it yourself. I saw someone a few months ago, right? they'd won an auction, a property auction. I think this was on Thursday or Wednesday. And they said, we want to start cracking Monday. Does anyone know any good builders in whatever part of the country? It was just madness, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Madness. I'm going to tell you something that I have seen projects like in the hundreds that were doomed to failure before day one, because I looked at it on paper and I just thought, you're heading for trouble there because it's not thought out properly, you know. And then once you get going, it's, when I talk about governance, it's about the running of it. You know, there's got to be some systems, there's got to be some procedures, there's got to be some accountability. There's going to be a list of non-negotiable, what we call deliverables, that the builder's got to give you. And if you're set up like that, when you go to a lender, if you can show them that you've got all this stuff, or you've got someone on your team who knows about all this, you've got a far better chance of getting financial backing for your projects, you know. Really, the battle is fought and won before day one of the projects, you know. So fought, won or lost, because projects go wrong, even the best planned projects go wrong. I mean, I was on Crossrail like that. That was 3 years late and £5 billion over budget. So I know all about projects going wrong. But you want to be on the front foot, not the back foot, right? You want to be reacting in a proactive manner, not a reactive manner. So you got a plan for every eventuality before you start. You'll have a list of risks and things that could go wrong. You will also have a list of people you will assign that particular problem to or solution to if it happens. And that's a good, strong starting point for any project.
In terms of just going back to what you said about the project was doomed to begin with, what's your kind of thought process when you're looking at, obviously the fact that they didn't have a builder lined up anyway, but what other stuff kind of...
Oh, okay, pretty simple stuff. You look at the project program, you know, they're going to do, let's say a 4-story former factory, they're making 20 flats, you know, they've got all the plastering down at 2 weeks, and just think, well, that just ain't going to happen.
Yeah,
you know, that's 6 weeks work there, you know.
Yeah.
Or that they think they can do it in 4 weeks with 4 men. You think, well, it's not, it's 12 men, you know, and it's like, you've budgeted 20 grand for that. There's about 75 grand's worth of work there. Just stuff like that. You just know it's not going to happen. And I see this a lot, and I call it positivity bias, right? So you're going to come to me and go, you know, I found this project, blah, 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 and I'm going to do this and do that. I'm going to make £1 million. And I look at it and I go, yeah, maybe, but what about this? What about, I don't think you got that right here. You forgot this here. That, mate, I've got to tell you, that's wrong. That needs to be changed. And you'll go, yeah, no, it'll be all right, because you're so, you want to be positive. You want this thing to work. You don't want to hear these things. Like, all right, yeah, I'll take it on board, but hopefully it won't happen. Like, come and let's get started tomorrow, you know. And you know, and a 1-year project with £1 million profit turns into a 2.5-year project with a £5 million loss.
Do you think projects are viable at the moment in the current market?
Now then, yes, always. Even in the worst economic times, there's always a project somewhere that's viable. What I must say, though, in this current time, is now you've got to look at the tax situation, because you set up this project, you're going to make X amount, that's great, but how much tax are you going to pay? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Now you've got to have a proper tax advisor and an accountant coming in, etc., etc. It's very, very tricky at the moment. When I look at the current government, they just seem to have this attitude of, if it moves, tax it, and if it don't move, double tax it. you know.
Yeah.
But no, I would say, look, people with the right skills, knowledge, and team behind them, and can get the funding at the right price. Yeah, there's the projects are viable. Yeah.
Just very quickly interrupting this episode, have you got a property deal in mind? Want to build or grow your portfolio but unsure how to obtain funding? No problem. At Roma Finance, they love to lend. The borrower first approach means Roma deliver flexible, tailored solutions that accommodate the diverse needs and experience of developers across residential and commercial projects. With a flexible criteria, Roma take time to understand each borrower's unique circumstances. Roma's attentive team are always equipped to handle and take on your requests. They will guide and support you throughout the property journey. Colleagues and customer relations are the beating heart of their business. Don't forget to explore Roma's website, romafinance.co.uk, for helpful resources, including articles and case studies to guide your financial decisions. Remember, Roma Finance love to lend. Your property goals are only a call or email away. Now back to the episode. Interesting. Jumping subjects. Obviously, you've been in this industry for a good amount of time. 1987. I think you mentioned that date. I wasn't even. I was just a twinkle in my dad's eye at that point.
I've probably been doing it since 1980, I think.
So that's a fair innings in any regard. If in the current climate, sort of going back to sort of 1980s mindset, that kind of young, ambitious, chasing the money, what sort of opportunities are available for people that are taking on projects at the moment, in terms of what career opportunities are there in the sector, what opportunities from a development perspective, what are you kind of seeing at the forefront?
All right, so you mean construction industry and property development?
Yeah.
All right, so I would say when I started in the building game, we were a heavy labour intensive industry. Mm-hmm. I don't know how familiar you are with London, but at the time, the biggest building in London was the NatWest Tower, and that took about 12 years. And there were about 3,000 or 4,000 blokes on it. 20 years later, they built a tower that was just a little bit smaller, the Heron Tower, and they did it in a year and a half with less than 1,000 blokes. So there's a lot less opportunities there for tradesmen, or I suppose I should say tradeswomen now as well, because of all this off-site manufacturer and modern methods of construction. I would say, however, anyone coming into it now, we got this revolutionary AI and all these renewable technologies, etc. So I've had to work my way up from the bottom. To get my seat at the top table, you can only get it by putting in your time, right? So now, like I'm 57, now I could be at a meeting at work, we're all in our 50s, 60s maybe. We need someone who knows how to use BIM or Revit or AutoCAD or something. If that's a 20-year-old, it don't matter. They're sitting at the table. They ain't got to put their time in. So all this has changed now. I would say, so anyone considering a career in construction, try and think of a skill that you can work from anywhere in the world. For example, I do MEP, mechanical, electrical plant design. You can do that sitting on a laptop on the other side of the world. So yeah, a lot of exciting opportunities there. When I look at the property development sector, it appears to me at the moment the best strategies seem to be commercial to residential. This 1.5 million houses thing that Labour said that just ain't going to happen. It's just simple. We cannot build 100,000 houses at the moment. That's because we ain't got the workforce and materials cost. If you're now going to triple the demand, you've got to triple the workforce and you've got to triple the amount of materials coming. So that means prices will go up. So it's just not going to happen. That's soundbite politics, you know. We're going to stop illegal immigration. That took me 2 seconds to say. We're going to build 1.5 million houses. That was 3 seconds. You know, and we're going to give, I don't know, 20 billion quid to Ukraine. That's 5 seconds. How about that? Brilliant. You know, we're going to create 2 million new jobs in renewable industry. Fantastic. What are these job titles called? How much are they paying? Where are they? Oh, well, we ain't thought about that, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Commercial residential, purely because, you know, the housing shortage, but the tax advantages. You know, you get a good tax planning consultant. You were at the Property Investor Awards back last year. I was there. A lot of them people up there, very, very creative deals. You know, it was all about being creative. It wasn't just the bog standard. I found a bit of land cheap and I built 20 houses and made a load of money. Them, I wouldn't say at the moment that's the strategy to follow. Now you've got to comply with all the planning conditions, the biodiversity, net gain, etc., the seal, you know.
Yeah. It's become more difficult, which is, I suppose, it's an opportunity in itself because it weans out the amateurish individuals, which if you're in and around it consistently and you're professional in the market, then that means you can look at things in that creative manner and make stuff work that other people might not necessarily see as an opportunity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's definitely a really great point. I mean, I'm sure you've seen over the last, you know, well, since the 1980s, the seasons of the market. And I'm sure this kind of new market that we're in, it's obviously very difficult from a regulation perspective to make stuff work and the costs of stuff and everything else in between. So I think it's interesting to hear your take on.
And what people who are doing property developments have to understand is there's some seismic changes going on in the background that people don't really hear about. For example, you might have heard about it, the end of grandfather rights with the CIT beef. For your viewers who don't know what it is, basically, in the old days, if you hadn't finished college or whatever, maybe you're a bricklayer, a plasterer, electrician, it gets to the point where they say the bloke's got 20 years experience, we'll give him a card. You know what I mean? That's all been withdrawn. Now, the people who are losing that are all my age and above. And just for a point of principle, they're not going to go back to college 3 nights a week and do an MVQ. They're just not. So they're dropping out of the trade. They're either taking early retirement or what they're doing, because I work in, if you want to call it, the higher levels of the industry where the big money is, you know. Now, these people have got a certain standard of living. They're not going to give that up. So they're going to drop down into the domestic market, set up companies, but they're going to be wanting the same sort of money. So we've got a skill shortage already. We're going to lose some of them people because of this grandfather rights. But dropping down into the SME property development sector, it's going to be a new generation of older people, but who want the big money, right? So there is no way bill costs are going to go down. You've also got a massive brain drain out to Saudi Arabia and Oman. People talk about Dubai. I reckon Dubai's had its day. Like, it's reached its peak. It'll still go up, but its best days are gone. Saudi Arabia, now you can go there. I'm sort of an electrical engineer. Now, I know I could go there and get £1,000 a day tax-free, 7 days a week. I know I could go there right now and get 30 grand a month tax-free. And many thousands of the top skilled people in this country have already gone. So we've got a skill shortage and we've got a brain drain, and these blokes who are jacking it in, now we've got a knowledge transfer problem. There's no one left to pass it down to the apprentices, you know. So these 1.5 million houses are not going to get built. Construction industry thrives on cheap labour, loves it, use and abuse and exploit people from other countries, you know. Problem is, cheap labour don't want to come here because the cost of living here and the tax rates are so high. Britain's not attractive, so where can they get people now? There's all that going on in the background that directly impacts when you read a post on Facebook from someone going, builders are ripping me off. The bloke wants £300 a day. I only wanted one wall painted. All that stuff is tied into it.
Jumping, I suppose, back to the project, what makes a project unsuccessful? Flipping that on its head, what makes a project successful?
Okay, so getting your numbers right, getting the build costs right is absolutely essential. You know what I mean? Having a project program that's realistic, that's workable, again, is essential. You can't just hope for the best. You got to plan this, and when you look at it all on paper, it might come to more than what you wanted to pay. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. And this thing about the cost of labour, in my experience now, look, I've been doing this, I don't know, 45 years or so. I've been on several thousand projects, right? Now, I've spoken to tens of thousands of builders and tradesmen in my time, worked with them, managed them, worked for them, and one thing has never changed. Skilled labour is not cheap, and cheap labour is not skilled. If you want to have a successful project, find out what you need to pay and pay it. It's as simple as that. And if it don't stack up on paper, then the project is no good. If you can only get this project done using cheap labour, then the project is no good. The deal is no good. Give it a miss. Pass on to the next one. But having control over the project once it starts as well, that's crucial. I see a lot of people, because they're new to it, they'll take on a builder and they're trusting him to deliver it. They're paying good money. They see stuff they don't like. They don't really feel they can challenge him, etc. And like I said before, it's not an us and them situation. That doesn't need to be clashes, but there needs to be governance. You know what I mean? You need to keep a tight control on what's going on. So you have governance, that's stakeholder management. Everyone involved in the project is stakeholder. So it's the developer, it's anyone putting money into it, and it's anyone working on it. You've got to control those people. It can't just be a matey thing. And, we're in business. This is business now. People got to have a mindset shift. It's about profit and loss. If there's loss, it ain't worth doing it. We want to make profit. Let's set it up properly. Let's cost it properly. Let's put a realistic time frame into it. Let's not cut corners. Let's have very high standards of quality and integrity amongst all of us, and you're going to have a successful project.
It's refreshing to hear, and I think any property investor starting out experienced, I think, needs to listen to what you're saying today, because a lot of people in this industry don't look at things from that perspective. They look at it that, what you mentioned, the positive view of it. And I think it's something that's very much understated. I mean, I truthfully made that mistake in my first project. I was 23, didn't really know what I was doing, trusted the builder. And I'm sure he would have the same version of what you've said there, that, there was just a misunderstanding, and work didn't get done. And particularly the fact that it was cheap. And that was my first lesson in property, and probably saved me thousands over the last few projects that I've been doing over the last year since then. So I think if you can listen to this podcast and what you're saying and not make those mistakes, because it's so simple when someone says it, but everyone misses it. And I think it's refreshing to hear that the simple things of everything that you know, everything that you understand, the simple things are what matter.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. So in terms of, I suppose, on the project side, so let's say, you know, the individual's kind of cracked it, they're sort of looking to level up. What are sort of some of the mistakes that you kind of see from that kind of gear up element? So, you know, you sat with them and you've kind of gone through, what are some of the things?
All right. So retaining your current workforce, you might have a builder who's very good, very diligent, good standard of work, reliable. You can work, you get on well with him on a personal level, you know, and you've done a couple of projects and it's all gone good and everyone's happy. But these are small. Now maybe you want to go to building, let's just say, 20 flats in a block, new builds, right? Now, new builds are actually relatively simple because there's nothing now, right? And you can watch the progress as it goes up. And if something's missing, you can see that it's missing.
Yeah.
So when I say 20 flats, it's not really a big job. But is your builder geared up for this? Because this is a constant thing I have with people when they talk about, I need a project manager for my site. And I say, hang on, do you need a project manager or do you need a site manager? It's one, you know, these are completely different skill sets. You can have a builder who, let's say, he does, you know, the brickwork, the blockwork, the civils and puts the roof on, right? And he's got chippies working for him and he's got good relations with a plumbing company, electrical company and the window company, and he can do your little 5 new build houses, or he can do your small commercial residential. That's all right, he can handle it. He's got his little supply chain and he's on good terms with that. All of a sudden now you're going into 20 new build flat. It's different. It's bigger. He hasn't got enough men to cope. Now he's got to bring in people that he doesn't know, you know. And perhaps the people he's got are really good. You know, now he's bringing in other people. Perhaps they're not so good. And this is where it goes wrong. Now, it might be hard. People think, well, I don't really want to ditch him. He's been good to me these last few years. But remember, we're in business. If he ain't up to it, he's got to go. Now you've got to go for a firm who are bigger. You know, they've got a bigger credit line. They're used to doing these jobs. And you will probably have to have a full-time team of professionals. You know, now, there's one project I'm doing at the moment. I'm the principal designer for it under the CDM regulations. I'm full-time on it. You know. Others I'm doing, I just do 1 day a month, or others they'll pay me whatever, 300-400 quid at the beginning to set it up. Then I tell them what they need to do and they just crack on with it, you know. So you might only have this small sort of part-time team. Perhaps you'll have a structural engineering question, just one problem. You'll meet someone at a property networking event. They're quite able to deal with this. They'll charge you 400 quid. That's it. The work cracks on. He's gone. You know. Now, when you're doing a bigger development, you might need to retain this person. And I see people, they have a reluctance to do that, you know, because they just see it as an additional cost. Adding any professional to a project is not an additional cost. It's additional value, you know, and a lot of people can't see that.
It's like, I suppose, any business really, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, when you get to a certain level, whoever's helped you to get to that point might not necessarily help you get to the next point. Exactly.
And then also I've worked with people who were at the stage of building like whatever 15 houses at a time, 4 blocks of 20 flats, but now they want to go bigger. They want to start doing luxury developments in prime London. Now, you've got to start dealing with construction companies who are used to doing this kind of work. And that is a completely different ball game, because now you're not dealing with a construction company. What you're dealing with is extremely switched on business people who just so happen to have a construction company with them. You know what I mean? And now we're talking about something goes wrong. It ain't just a tin of paint that got spilt. It's a tenner down at B&Q to be replaced. Something's gone wrong. Well, that's 40 grand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something's gone wrong here. Well, we can't crack on. The wage bill is 70 grand a week. We're still charging you. So why? What's wrong? Well, if you go through this 300-page contract, if you go to page 197, section 21, clause 4, part B, that is spelt wrong. So that means blah, 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 and you bang, like, you know, and I've seen all that happen as well. So it's, you know, whatever you're getting ready to go into, you better be up for it. Like, there's no prisoners taken.
Absolutely. So on that note, and to nicely round off the episode, what key bits of advice would you give to, or one bit of advice would you give to people that are trying to level up or, you know, trying to go through those stages?
I would say to them, take your time, invest in a bit of education, and by that I mean, remember, you are in the construction industry, so you're not going to property training things anymore. You're going on a website of RICS or the IET, Institute of Engineering and Technology, or the CIOB, Chartered Institute of Building. You're doing some of their courses and you're really thinking seriously about this. You're also paying for advice off of consultants before you part with your money. That's the best bit of information I'll give anyone.
Amazing. I could genuinely sit here and listen to you talk all day. I think really scratch the surface in terms of what you can provide in terms of value. But if people potentially want to reach out, you know, they're maybe after some consultation, how can they go about doing that?
Okay, probably the easiest place is to find me on LinkedIn, just Dave Forde, or you go on my website. That's really easy, www.daveforde.com.
Spot on.
Yeah.
Happy days, easy enough. We'll put all the info in the show notes as well.
All right, thanks.
But I appreciate you making the trip up today, and it's been a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
No problem. Cheers, Dave. Thank you very much for tuning in. Obviously, yeah, I mean, my head's spinning in terms of what, Dave's shared today. I think there's definitely a lot to unpick there and some great insights from someone that's been through all the levels, all the way up to, you know, that top level, as Dave alluded to. So thank you very much for tuning in. As I always say, please do like and subscribe and leave a review where you can, and we can continue to get amazing guests like Dave. Thank you very much. See you again soon. Bye-bye.